Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Tristan Rallings, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Corporal Andrew Lipinski. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of the more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Frederick Allen Doodson. Frederick Doodson was born in 1895, the fourth and youngest son of Edward and Matilda Doodson of Sydney. Known as Curly, he grew up in Piermont and was educated at Ultimo Public School. His first job was working as a messenger with the General Post Office. He later went to work for a sawmiller in Piermont, and towards the end of 1913, worked on the docks with his older brothers. He was a keen sportsman, a member of the local swimming club and boxing school, and a prominent member of the Piermont Soccer Football Club. Doodson was described as a good son who neither smoked nor indulged in strong drink, although fond of the art of boxing, was a well-behaved lad. Frederick Doodson enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force shortly after the war broke out in August 1914. His family, who had moved to Lidcombe, were not well off, and his income as a soldier was a valuable addition to household finances. Doodson left Australia with the 1st Battalion and wrote home regularly after arriving in Egypt. He was shortly followed by his brother Walter, who arrived with reinforcements to the 3rd Battalion. The brothers were able to meet in Egypt and had their photograph taken together to send home. While in training, Doodson tried to set up a number of boxing matches, but they were canceled because his opponent was unwell. He wrote with disappointment, "By the way things are going, I will not get a fight at all." Doodson did not like Egypt's climate, writing, "It is crook weather here. It is very hot in the day and terribly cold at about midnight," and described his life as a soldier as having plenty of work and very little leave, and very crook grub. On the 21st of March 1915, Private Doodson wrote to his mother to say, "There are lots of rumors about that we are leaving for England at any minute, but if we do go away, it will not be for the old country. I think that the next place we go to will be the Dardanelles, as the Allied fleets are bombarding the forts there." He ended his letter with several crosses that he wrote were for the kiddies. In the early hours of the 25th of April 1915, the 1st Battalions of the Australian Imperial Force began landing on Gallipoli. The 1st Battalion, including Private Frederick Doodson, formed part of the 2nd and 3rd waves of the landing, the men arriving on the beach to find a confusion of wounded men and reinforcements before being sent to the heights to help the men fighting to establish the front line. At some point during this day, Private Doodson was wounded and after being taken to the beach, was evacuated on the hospital ship Gascon. He died of his wounds shortly before the ship docked in Egypt. The newspapers described after the loss of their first son, "The parents are much cut up, the mother particularly so." But the Doodson family would lose even more during the First World War. Corporal Walter Doodson was badly wounded at Lone Pine and eventually invalided back to Australia and discharged as unfit for further service. Another brother, Charles, would die of his wounds serving as a gunner on the Western Front in 1917. Shortly after Frederick's death, the Lidcombe Council unanimously decided to rename Hanover Street in his honor. It remains Doodson Avenue to this day. Private Frederick Doodson was buried in Alexandria Military and War Memorial Cemetery in Egypt. He was 19 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honor on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Frederick Allen Doodson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his... Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.